For those for those of you that saw the original program, this particular time slot was set aside for Senator Sullivan to speak because of healthcare discussions in Congress. He was not able to participate this year. But Mr. Anthony Edwardsen, President and CEO of the Ukepvik Inupiat Corporation, or UIC, will be talking comments from a whaling captain. Tony?
All right, sir. Just make sure to talk into the microphone. This is good. Thank you.
Paulagifsi, I'm Anthony Edwardsen, President CEO of Ukepvik Inupiat Corporation, also a member of the Barrow Whaling Captains. And when Senator Sullivan asked me to fill in for his spot, I didn't have a problem filling for his spot, so I also won't have a problem filling his spot for a senator. So. But I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. I want to thank the Arctic Research Commission and the Arctic Policy, and I just want to share with you guys a little bit about the last speaker that spoke. He said he wasn't a Democrat, he wasn't a Republican, but I just want to share one thing that I had shared with my older brother, Charles Edwardsen. And him and I were at the whale camp, and we were discussing about the industry, and then I said, Charlie, why are you so against the industry? And he goes, well, Anthony, they're out to harm our environment. And I said, I think if we do this in the right way, we can go far and beyond that. And then so as we spoke for a while, Charlie goes, Tony, my Republican brother. So I always remember my brother Charlie. He's done a lot of good stuff for ANCSA. He's done a lot of good stuff for our North Slope Borough. And I think when it comes to a home rule government, North Slope Borough is one of our largest home rule government, and it's got 88,000 square miles of land. And with the North Slope Borough, we have the Prudhoe Bay, and they also work closely with the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission. And when it comes to Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission, we have an agreement with the bilateral agreement with the Russians that it goes right down to our whaling, Nanook Commission, Beluga Commission, Walrus Commission, and other organizations also. And I just want to share that that when it comes to our whaling, we heavily depend on our whaling, and it's our subsistence way of life. We've been doing it for thousands of years, and as you can see on this map, the whales, they migrate. I don't know which one's the pointer. Okay, right here. The whales migrate from the west to east in the spring. And we patiently wait for the whales on the edge of the ice. And this year, Barrow Whaling Captains were successful on landing 8 whales. And this year was a very unique year because of, everybody calls it global warming. And my brother Charlie always say it's going through its cycle. But this year we had a very, the ice wasn't thick enough to pull up some 40-foot plus whales. So when they talked about ice not being thick enough, so we were pulling the whales up, but they kept on falling through the ice. So, anything over 40 feet wasn't thick enough for that ice that we have. And we don't see that old ice anymore nowadays. That old ice, we call it Ukepvik ice. And we don't see that. And earlier, that presentation from the Canadian They showed us some slides about the ice and the ice thickness. Right now, the ice thickness is just not thick enough for pulling up a good sized whale. And our average whales are about 40 foot. And we normally go after the 30 foot or less, and because those are the prime, we call it the butterball whales. And so those are a lot easier for us to work on the ice than the big whales. And first thing the community will ask on the VHF is, how big is the whale? So, you know, when they don't say anything, some of the community just, they march right out there. But otherwise, I just want to share one thing that earlier they talked about icebreakers. And I think when it came to saving the whales in 1988, and I think the world was heavily focused on trying to save the gray whales that were stranded on the ice. And I think when it came to collaboration with other nations, that there was 2 Russian icebreakers that showed up right there, and the whole world was focused on Barrow. And those of you that don't know where Barrow is, we're right there at the very top. And when it came to those whales, the Russian icebreakers, the smaller icebreaker just plowed right through the ice. Right in this area right here is where we made all the holes to for the whales to breathe. You know, made holes every 300 feet, and you know that's what we tried to do, save those gray whales. But the Russian icebreakers came right in and they plowed a path, and so we know for sure that when it comes to a deep water port, we're looking at Barrow, Alaska ourselves. And because U.S. Coast Guard, when it comes to Healy or the Polar, when it comes to our scientific research, they have to go all the way back to Kodiak to fuel up, not Kodiak, but Dutch Harbor, and go back and go do their scientific research. And I think it would be more feasible if there was a port put in place right there in Barrow. And I think we heard it today about the ice rapidly receding and the water rising. And I think right now what we're looking at in our protected lagoon, and we call that the Edwardsen Lagoon, it has a natural draft of 38 feet. And then to come into that draft, it's got some area that need to be dredged, but it's got we're looking at 4 fathoms, you know, just right to get into that 38-foot draw. And today we heard about Admiral Paul. He mentioned about the icebreakers. And I know when it comes to icebreakers, they only have 2 right now. And the third one, they're using the third one for spare parts. So it's very similar like the slide you saw earlier from the Canadian about how the Inuit transport over the ice with snowmobiles. So we do the same thing. We transport our whaling gear, very similar, just like what you saw earlier. And we have an American-made chassis with a Japanese engine. So that's how some of our snow machines are. And as far as when it comes to icebreakers, I strongly believe that we can work with other nations about, you know, because right now it's a huge amount of, substantial amount of money just to build one icebreaker for the U.S. And that is substantial amount of money. And I think with that amount of money, we can probably look at purchasing 3 icebreakers. So otherwise, I just want to emphasize about a little bit of our whaling. And when I said about the home rule government, our home rule government provides jobs and opportunities for the whole North Slope. And within that whole North Slope, it serves 8 villages within the North Slope. And that's provided by our local North Slope Borough government. And without our North Slope Borough government, we wouldn't have the infrastructures that we have today. And the infrastructures that we have, especially when it comes to supporting the industry, the North Slope Borough worked really hard on putting in a search and rescue effort. And this chopper that we have is very well capable of supporting the industry. And before, those choppers that we have weren't even capable of flying in icing condition weather. So right now, when it comes to infrastructure, our UIC and our joint venture was very instrumental on helping the North Slope Borough on building a new North Slope Borough hangar, search and rescue, and to support that new chopper that we have for the North Slope Borough. And when it comes to search and rescue effort, I think we work closely with the U.S. Coast Guard. We work closely with the Russian government. And we also support the U.S. Navy on a lot of the infrastructures that we put up in Barrow. Right now, we have a contract with the U.S. Navy on supporting the ice camp logistics that's going on Beaufort Sea. And so when it comes to hand-in-hand working with the U.S. Coast Guard or the U.S. Navy, we try our best to, try and support our clients. And at this time, I don't have very much more to say, but I just want to thank the Arctic Research Commission for allowing me to speak on behalf of Senator Sullivan. And when it comes to Senator Sullivan, I think he took over our late Senator Ted Stevens. And our late Senator Ted Stevens was very instrumental on helping us build a new scientific research facility in Barrow. And we have a very beautiful scientific research facility that we operate, and it's operated by UIC. And I think a number of you guys have joined us at our Arctic Business Development Tour. We'll be hosting another Arctic Business Development Tour in February 27th to March 2. So if you guys are willing to join us for our Arctic Business Development Tour, you guys are more than welcome. And I want to thank our late former mayor, Edwardsen. He used to be in the Arctic Research Commission, and the one I think that took over her spot is Marie Green, and I want to thank Marie for, allowing us to be part of this here. And I just want to thank you guys for all the good stuff that you guys are doing for the Arctic. And when it comes to Arctic, we got to be part of it. And if we're not involved, there's people going to be coming in. And the most important thing for our people is we have that traditional knowledge. And that traditional knowledge that we have is when it comes to these young kids, the young generation kids, they have no clue about how the ice conditions are. And then so it's very important for us, it's very important for us to teach those young children about, for example, when it comes to bearded seal hunting in the springtime. It's very unsafe when the shore-fast ice is still attached to the shore. And then the young kids are so impatient and they try to go over the ice with snowmobiles and go to the open lead. But little do they know when it comes to west wind, and that's when our elders taught us about when it's west wind, you stay away. You come on in and go, you stay home. And so, I think about 4 years ago, there must have been like 6 vessels lost just on account of being impatient. And, that's why it's so important for the Coast Guard to be present. Oops.
It's okay.
I think it's very important for the Coast Guard to be present up in the Arctic. And when it comes to they're present, they're all the way down in Kodiak, and I think they have a few choppers there in Kotzebue, but that's still 400 miles away from Barrow. And I just want to share that Senator Sullivan did an outstanding job on supporting our scientific research. And in 1986, we took over the Naval Arctic Research Lab, and that's all operated by UIC. So when it comes to supporting science, we're very well interested on supporting science. And when it comes to supporting science, we have that traditional knowledge for sharing whatever expertise that we have. And when it comes to the industry, we have the MMOs, that marine mammal observers that stay on the vessels and, you know, watch guard with the industry and let them know what kind of marine mammals those are or whatever it may be. But our main source of food comes out of the Arctic Ocean. And so when it comes to subsistence way of life, we're very protective of it. And earlier there was mention about the oil spill response. And I think on oil spill response, we got ourselves very well equipped with Shell when they were up there, when they were drilling on the 2012 and 2015. And Shell was very helpful with UIC, and we also picked up a man camp from Shell for very little. And I think with a lot of the Shell's equipment that we have for oil spill response, and our oil spill ARS group works closely with Alaska Clean Seas, that's right outside of Prudhoe Bay. And I think when it comes to oil spill response, we try and coordinate everything with not only the Alaska Clean Sea, but also with the U.S. Coast Guard. And so when it comes to infrastructure, we are very lacking on infrastructure. And when it comes to infrastructure, those are the areas that we're mainly focusing on and trying to assist the U.S. Coast Guard or the U.S. Navy on, you know, building those infrastructures. And otherwise, I think I'm...
Anthony, you have mentioned the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy a couple of times in terms of your relationship and your work with them. But yesterday we learned that the U.S. Air Force is planning to pay a visit to Alaska at high-level members of the U.S. Air Force. Are you aware of this, or have you had any?
Yeah, we're pretty much aware of them. Yes. And then we just want to thank NOAA for, you know, doing an outstanding job for us in the Arctic. And, you know, just the other day, me and my good friend Cliff, we went on a walrus hunt, and some of our local guys were saying, "You guys are too late. The ice is 100 miles out." And we have the satellite image, right? And we're looking at it, and the ice was only like 6 miles out. And the other guy goes, "What image are you looking at?" "I'm looking at an image right now." And then he said, the ice is 80 miles out. And then we said, "Wow, what image are you looking at?" So we left Saturday, and then we went right out the point where we want to put the deep water port, and it wasn't even 6 miles out. And how we know this, and I shared this with Don Long, he's our former mayor, and he's also the in charge of the new port that we're trying to put in for the North Slope Borough. We call it Kisu, and Kisu on the horizon it's white, and that's where the edge of the ice is. When you see the a white cloud, not a white cloud, on a clear day it'll be like a white mist, but we call that the Kisu. So when you see the Kisu out there, you know for sure the ice is there. Now, when it comes to Kungu is a dark cloud where there's an open lead. That's what we call Kungu. And if you see a dark cloud, that means there's open water. So, you know, when we talk about traditional knowledge, I just want to share about traditional knowledge. And at this point, I don't have any more.
Anthony, I think there are a couple of questions. Hopefully we could go through them very quickly. First one, if you dredge into that 38-feet draft harbor of Barrow, would you have to redredge every year or a few years because of ice movement. So it would be a continuous maintenance.
Yeah, see the ice movement. Right now we got the freeze over, just the freeze over that comes in the fall, during the winter. And then that ice just pretty much stays around, and then, there'll be ice going out, ice coming in, but that ice usually stays once it's stuck to the shore fast ice. And that ice is not very thick. So what we're waiting for is like, hopefully the lead goes out, and maybe when the ice makes a big turnaround, there'll be some better ice on the other side that, we call that when it rocks. When the ice hits and it rolls around, and hopefully on the other side of that ice, it'll be better ice. But, it's the ice that we have right now is just a freeze over for a year.
Okay, so may not have any significance as it relates to dredging, I guess. The other question, do you think the oil and gas industry will resume exploration offshore the North Slope in the next 10 years?
With the price of oil going down, I think Shell was very optimistic of trying to go out there and pursue their 2 wells that they were trying to drill. But the problem that they came across was that the Obama administration gave them so much, there were so much policies and regulations that they had to follow. So we couldn't drill 2 wells simultaneously. They only allowed us to drill 1 well at a time. So that was a huge impact for Shell. And they did spend substantial amount of money, about $7 billion, just to drill 2 wells. And at this point, I don't know what their status is, but there is some areas that they were able to discover in Smith Bay and just right outside of Cookpik, Nuiqsut. And with the price of oil, I think it's like, gotta look at them in the horizon.
All right, good answer.
So,
all right, well, we'd like to thank you for your contribution.
Yes.